Let's talk to Mex. 123. Mex, I think this was the easiest All Black team to pick in a very long time. I got it exactly right yesterday. That doesn't really make any consequential difference to anything. But Dalton Papali'i's thumb injury means Sam Cane at 7 and Sam Penny comes back to the bench. So let's start with those loose forwards. Let's talk to Mex. 123. Mex, I think this was the easiest All Black team to pick in a very long time. I got it exactly right yesterday. That doesn't really make any consequential difference to anything. But Dalton Papali'i's thumb injury means Sam Cane at 7 and Sam Penny comes back to the bench. So let's start with those loose forwards.
Yeah, well, everyone's got their opinion, haven't they, Martin? And that's good. That's healthy. The only thing is that you've got to look hard at the conditions and the strategy and the referee. So when you name your team, you've got to take those things into account. And the big thing about playing at Ellis Park is the altitude. And don't let anybody tell you that it's not relevant these days because these players are fitter. That's not the case at all. Altitude, the oxygen's thinner, and it's bloody hard to run around, certainly for 80 minutes. Like you would at sea level. So, you know, there's a few mitigating factors to take into account when you name the team. So, for me, I would have only made 2 changes to the team they announced. So, that's not too bad, is it? You know, my 2 changes would have been, I think that Tupou Vaa'i is not tall enough to compete with the South African line-out. Although, in saying that, I see that... you know, they've lost their 2 biggest players, haven't they? Mm-hmm. You know, Estabeth will come on, there's no doubt about it. Now, Estabeth's 6'8.5", you know, and Tupou Vaa'i is about 196, which is 6'5". So there's a big difference in that. And when you're playing at altitude, you've got to have a lot of possession. You've got to have your share of possession. So I would say that we will battle to get 50% in this game, 50% of possession. And at altitude, when you kick the ball, it goes a lot further. For those that don't quite see that, because it's significant, because that affects the style of game that you play. And, of course, the last factor was, you know, who's the referee? I don't even know who the referee is.
It's a guy called Andrew Brace. That name doesn't... Oh, yeah. That doesn't... Well, okay, well, thank you that you know. That name doesn't mean a huge amount to me.
No, I've heard of him, but I don't know where he comes from. And, you know, it's definitely the case that in the Northern Hemisphere, the British and, to a lesser degree, the French referees do keep control of the game. You know, we've made a good effort in New Zealand to make the game more entertaining. And the referees have contributed to that. And I think New Zealand referees are doing a really good job at the moment. And the Australian ones are pretty good as well. But those British referees are pretty fickle. And, you know, they're looking for reasons to blow the whistle. And that also affects the strategic game because, you know, do you kick more at altitude because the ball goes a lot further to try and play the game in the opposition 22, for example, or the opposition half at least? When you're kicking for goal, if you kicked a 50-metre goal, you can now kick a 60-metre goal at altitude. So there's a lot of things to take into control. And I guess, you know, we'll just have to see what happens. But I heard a very interesting interview this morning, Martin. I don't know if you heard it. Beauden Barrett was interviewed by Mike Hosking. And he let one little thing out. It was a great interview, fantastic. I loved it. He let one thing out, and he said, you know, last time we played them, when we moved them around a bit, we stretched them, which gives me an indication that they're going to, once again, move the ball. And when you look at the team with McKenzie being retained at 10, now he's an attacking player. Whether he's got a strategic kicking game, no one knows yet. We haven't seen that. And Beauden Barrett, who's probably our most worldly player, is a fantastic player for us to have at fullback at altitude. And, of course, he's got Jordan and Clark beside him. So, you know, we've got plenty of counter-attack power and action. The second change that I would have made, you know, I would have changed one lock and the centre. I would have picked Leonard Brown because I think Leonard Brown when Leonard Brown plays, his wings score more tries. And I think that his distribution skills are outstanding, and he's smart in his distribution game. So I would have liked to have seen him at centre, and maybe Ioane would have been on the wing, because Ioane's a great player. I just don't think his distribution skills are as good as Leonard Brown's, and that's only a personal opinion. So it's going to be a hell of a game. And in my view, the Boks are definitely favourites.
All right, lots to unpack there, mate. I'm going to start with the referee. His name again, Andrew Brace. He was born in Wales. He represents the Irish Rugby Union. He's reffed 7 matches in the Six Nations. He was an assistant ref and a ref at the Rugby World Cup in France last year. But I suppose the concerning thing is that he isn't a name that springs to mind for either of us in terms of, I haven't seen him. I can't remember a game that he's reffed here in the Rugby Championship, even though it says that he has. So that means he's either one of those refs who you don't notice, which is brilliant, Mex, or he's a young guy, and is he going to be able to handle the heat and the pressure of what is in front of him in Joburg?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just listening to you talk about Andrew Brace. Did you say he's Welsh?
Yeah, he's born in Wales, but he represents the Irish Rugby Union.
Yeah, now that's a bit confusing from the start, isn't it?
So, yeah.
But anyway...
Mex, I just don't know, why can't we have a Southern Hemisphere ref these games? I mean, look, these are the guys that, I don't know, it's frustrating. Anyway, look, let's talk about the altitude, because, you one of the things that people probably don't know is you actually played the very first game at Ellis Park when it was opened in 1982, playing for Natal. There's always that argument about, do you arrive a couple of weeks early and get used to it, or do you fly in like the All Blacks did with just a week really to prepare to play at altitude? And what is it, half a dozen of one, 6 of the other?
Yeah, I think it's you've got to acclimatise, I think, is the best preparation. If you can acclimatise and get used to the altitude. And it was interesting in the Beauden Barrett interview this morning, he said that, their first training session when they got there, and, I think, did they arrive there was 7.5 days before the game, right?
That's right, yep.
So he said that we had a really light training run. We didn't overdo it, and we've built up since then. So every training run they've had since then, they've increased the tempo. The longevity, I'm not sure. He didn't really clarify that. But I do remember clearly, I mean, we've all heard about long-distance runners, haven't we, training at altitude for the Olympic Games and things like that. We've heard that for years and years. And the media today seem to treat it lightly because, everyone realises that we're bigger and faster and maybe fitter than we were, a few years ago. But altitude doesn't change. If you're at altitude, you're at altitude. And it still has the same effect. And don't underestimate it. I know the All Blacks have performed really well consistently in the past against the Springbok team at altitude. In fact, I think in the last few games we had more wins than they do at Ellis Park. But I don't think that's got I don't think that's so relevant in this game. The win, the fact that we've won more, I don't think that's relevant. I think what is relevant is the altitude, and I think they will be better equipped than us. And there's a number of those guys who've never played at altitude in our team, and it really is. You do feel like an asthmatic when you're playing. You just can't get enough gas in the engine, enough oxygen inside you. So this is a time when I think that the reserve bench is absolutely vital, Martin. I think, they've got a bomb squad, but we've got a bomb squad now, haven't we?
Well, have we? I look at theirs and we know that what's going to happen. They're going to come on and they're going to basically bring a brand new forward pack on. I think what Beauden Barrett said is significant, what you're saying before about moving them around, because 2022, we if you remember, Mex, we were down to 14 because he was off the field in the last 10 minutes, Beauden, in that test, and they were absolutely gassed, the South Africans. And also, add to this, 12 of this 23 did play that 2022 test that was vital for keeping Ian Foster in his job. So, that's a hell of a lot of experience that we've got as well. So let's not underestimate that.
Yeah, so I'm saying that we've got a bomb squad too, because they have got a hell of a bomb squad, haven't they? They've got Malcolm Marx and Estepes now.
Yeah,
Estepes. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, not to mention the others that will come on. Vincent Koch and Steenkamp. I mean, they've got a real lineup on the bench. There's no doubt about it. But we have too, when I look at it now.